Hi friends, welcome. Let us discuss something about criterion and the characteristics of abnormality. We'll be discussing the abnormality in two perspectives: Indian historical perspective and the modern or the Western perspective. In ancient time, when the Indian civilization was brimmed with knowledge, experience, and wisdom, there was a discipline formerly known as the Bhoot vidya. Is a word synonymously used with the past. So it refers to the study of psychological and emotional disorders. It was nothing to do with the ghost, spirit, etc. Basically, this discipline was designed to study the kind of abnormalities are found in human being in context of behavior, in context of emotions, in context of cognitive domain. So all these things collectively summarized in a discipline we formally called as the Bhoot Vidya. Abnormality was characterized in terms of mental disorders. Who suffered from the mental disorders were kept in the category of abnormal. Means the individual who suffers from some kind of mental disorders, they are only abnormal. Self was considered as the kingpin or the center point of human existence. And in that existence, if there is some kind of abnormality in the self, this field considers that individual whose self has distracted or dislocated from the central focal theme is bound to suffer from some kind of abnormal behavior or is some mental conditions which can safely be termed as the abnormal. So self was the central focal theme because it connects body, mind and the external environment. In the triangle of these three, the self was the central location. The saints, the sages, the academicians who designed this field of study were very intelligent enough in naming the mental disorders. What they have done is they have named the mental disorders in the names of gods and devils so that it become easier for the common people who are not well versed with the literature or they were illiterate, they can easily grasp the basic idea behind that mental disorder because it was assumed that the masses were well aware with the gods, devils, their behavior, what they're supposed to do, what their actions may be. So intelligently that mental disorders were named after them. This field of study asserts that there are contributory factors of abnormality. That is, they are known as the shat ripus, means six foes. Sat means six, ripu means four. So what are that sat ripus? Kam, Krodha, Lobha, Mad, Moha and Matsar. Kam specifically means excessive desire for something. Krodha means excessive anger, which is manifested in the behavior. Lobha means the excessive greed to possess something, to control resources. Mad means the highest level of pride in self, exaggeration. Moh means attachment with something to a level that detachment become almost impossible. Of asakti, attachment with the object of desire. And Matsar means jealousy. The individual who suffers from the Matsar feels like to be. So, the Bhoot vidya, the ancient science, the ancient field of study that describes about abnormality, says that these shat ripus, the six forces, are basically responsible for generating the mental disorder in the individual. Now let us take a beautiful example from Mahabharata. In that the Arjuna, he faced with a situation, he was supposed to kill his own people, his own loved ones, and that led him to disoriented state. Though it was not a abnormality, but in some sense it was a temporary abnormality. This means Arjuna was not able to decide, not able to do what he wanted to do, and he was almost in a state of shock. And interestingly, he was the central figure in that Mahabharata war. But Lord Krishna, his Sarthi, came to his rescue and helped him in getting the normal state of mind through the conversation. And that conversation is recorded in the form of Bhagavad Gita. It's a wonderful book of psychology where Lord Krishna explained the various concepts that directly deals with the human life. Bhagavad Gita is a book of solutions. The solutions for what? The real problem, the basic and the fundamental problems what we human beings face in our life, the solution to that problems. Now I'll share a small story of Kisa Gotmi. There was a young lady, her only son died. She was desperate. An old man came to rescue and suggested that outside the village there is a monk sitting there. You can go there and ask for the help. He might help you. She was so desperate, she immediately picked up her son's body and reached to the monk and just placed the son's body in her lotus feet. And that monk was Bhagwan Buddha. Narrated her dilemma, and she was desperately asking that monk, that is Bhagwan Buddha, to give life to her son. The only hope in her life. Buddha said that, yes, I can revive your son, but there is one condition. You have to get a handful of mustard seeds. Remember, you must collect that mustard seeds from that house in which till the time no one has died. She said, it's easy. I'll get you that handful of mustard soon. So she ran to the village and went to each house asking for a handful of mustard. But everyone said that, yes, we can give you the mustard seeds. But we too had faced such situation. Means our house also various people had died previously. She ran door to door but received the same response. At the neck of moment, she realized the truth and wisdom fall upon her. She walked again to the Bhagwan Buddha and became his disciple. When she came to Buddha, her mental state was disoriented. Buddha not summoned her, not gave any counseling, nothing. He just intelligently gave a task that helped that Gautami in realization of the truth. And finally, she could make it. And legend is that Kissa Gautami was the most populous follower of Bhagwan Buddha. Indian literature is full of such stories, incidents, anecdotes where the disoriented states were being normalized with the help of ingenious strategies. The Indian perspective suggests some interventions to deal with the abnormality. The first intervention is the spiritual stimulation, then the treatment by the insight, and the most important is the mind integration with the self with the help of deep meditation, and that stage is the samadhi state. The most famous Indian sage Patanjali, he has explained the concept of mind through this diagram. He says that the internal core of the mind is the cognitive self, then psychological self, which is covered by the physical self, and finally the social self. If there is a distraction in any part of this, that leads to the abnormality. Now, abnormality in Western perspective. You know, abnormality in terms of mental disorders was considered as the handiwork of demons. Western people think that way. The individuals suffering from mental disorders were considered as possessed by some evil spirit that has its own methods to deal with such a exorcism. The treatments were administered by the priests. Means the abnormal people who are possessed by devils, they can only be treated with the priests because they were considered as the agents of God. Then Hippocrates decried this view. He considered it as a disease that needs proper cure, care, or intervention. The Plato also advocated the humane treatment to the such patients who suffers from the mental disorders or some kind of abnormality. Then the French pioneer Philippe Pinel, he strongly advocated that mental patients should be treated with kindness and consideration as sick people and not as vicious beasts or criminals, because he observed that the people were chained, confined to rooms, inhuman treatment was given to them. So he strongly worked against that treatment and advocated that these people need the scientific treatment because they are also as human. And his work led to the emergence of mental hospitals in the France, and the people were relieved of mental disorders by the genuine efforts of Philippe Pinel. So what are the characteristics of abnormality? You know, abnormality is an absence of normal state of mental health, means the absence of mental health and well-being. It is the indicator of inadequacy in mental functioning, adjustment, and interpersonal relations. Abnormality manifests the disturbed state of the mind, leading to disoriented thought process and disturbed emotional expressions. It significantly interferes with cognitive, behavioral, and emotional well-being of an individual. That is, if an individual is abnormal, his cognitive domain, behavioral domain, or emotional domain, or the social domain is in the state of disorientation. The abnormality prevents in successful application of coping strategies. The human beings who are found to be abnormal, they face difficulty in coping with the stressful life situations or the challenges. Abnormality weakens resilience and optimism, while enhances pessimism, hopelessness, and negativism. Means abnormal people lack the optimism and resilience, whereas they have high level of pessimism, negativism. The abnormality decreases the productivity of the individual because it induces some kind of inadequacy in the human being. The expression of emotions is one of the indicators of normal human being, whereas abnormality induces a state in the individual where the emotional imbalance is manifested and clearly visible. That means individual fails to express his emotions as per the situations. Finally, what is the criteria of abnormality? That is unable to use individual cognitive capacity for various activities such as observation, imagination, learning, thinking, planning, decision making, etc. etc. The lack in these fields is one of the criterion of abnormality. The situation where mental efforts are required and a particular individual expresses a deficiency in that state, certainly he is in line of the abnormality. People who suffers from these kind of problems where they found it difficult to think rationally, logically, it can be safely understood that he or she is in line or progressing towards the abnormality. The expression of aggression, the frustration, and other negative behavior is higher and more frequently. Certainly, it's an indicator of abnormality. If an individual finds it difficult to perform day-to-day activities, then it is also one of the indicators of abnormality. Day-to-day activities means taking regular bath, consuming food, tying your shoelaces, wearing regular dress, everything. These are day-to-day activities. If there is some kind of deficiencies or disorientation is observed in this, certainly it's an indicator of abnormality. More often suffers from negativism, insecurity, and guilt. Those people who feels regular insecurity always have some kind of negativism, continuously suffers from guilt. Certainly, the abnormality has put its footprints there. If individual find it difficult to cope up with the stress, take the challenges, or find it difficult to solve the problems, that abnormality has set in. Always in the fantasy, fails to take any responsibility, there is no self-discipline, certainly chances of abnormality are higher. There is no interpersonal relations or the very poor interpersonal relations. That is also criterion of abnormality. Lack in situation-specific appropriate emotional expression. If an individual finds it difficult to express the situation-specific emotions, certainly there is a onset of abnormality. For example, in some sad situation, individual find it difficult to express the sadness. In place of that, he start laughing or manifesting the happiness or some kind of inappropriate behavior. That is the indicator of abnormality. These are my references. If you want to study more, just refer them. And if you love and like the contents and the presentation style of this video, you can share with others, tell to others. But if you have any question, query, just write my comment box, or you can write through these social media handles. Still, you can email me at vamasujit@gmail.com. yahoo.com. And don't forget to watch my next video on topic biological model of psychopathology. Thank you friends for watching.